Hello, Max here with Xano, and today we're going to be talking about how you can connect Xano to WeWeb for a simple job board app using user authentication. Now we're going to start by going into our Xano account, and we can see we have this jobs table, which stores the different job records we want to show in this job board app. This has some basic information like the job title, company, salary, and location. In our user table, we're able to store the different users that have signed up with our app, so that way they can come back and log in to authenticate. In our API, we have the basic CRUD endpoints built out for our jobs and user tables. The one we really care about is this get all jobs record, which will make it so we can pull in all the data from our jobs table into the WeWeb front end. In this auth API group, we have these API endpoints for login, signup, and authentication, which can actually be easily added using our pre-built templates for login, signup, and authentication. Now, in order to connect this to WeWeb, we can go to our instances, our settings, and click on the metadata API. Now, the metadata API is basically a pre-built set of endpoints that Xano has configured, so that way you can programmatically manage your data and also enables you to connect to front ends like WeWeb. So we can go to Manage Access Tokens and create a new access token. We can name it whatever we want and just copy this access token. That's going to be how we authenticate with WeWeb. Now we're going to switch over to WeWeb. All right, so now in WeWeb, we can create a new project. We use the job board template, and we'll open up that editor. All right, so we can see we have this job template, which just gives us a list of records. We're going to edit that a bit later, but for now, we want to configure our connection to Xano. So we can start by setting up our plugins to connect to Xano. So we can use this Xano plugin and paste in our metadata API key, select our instance and workspace, and then click continue. And now everything is already configured, which we know because these green check marks have lit up. Now we can configure the authentication with Xano. So we'll use the Xano auth plugin. We'll paste in that metadata API key, and again, select our instance and workspace. And now we can set the corresponding endpoints for authentication, login, and signup with our app. So these are going to be the endpoints that we created within Xano. All right, we'll click continue, and we can see most of these green check marks are up, but we do have one more thing to set up, which is the redirection URL. This is basically where users will be sent if they have not signed in. We're going to land them on the login page, just because that way they have a chance to log in or sign up for an account. We'll click continue, and now everything is green. We're good to go. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set up our login page. When we go here, we see we have this form to allow users to enter in an email and password and sign in. If we click on this form container and go to our workflow editor, we see we have this predefined sign-in workflow. We want to make it so that way this uses the Xano login endpoint. So when a user submits the form, they are automatically logged in. We'll have it pass over the email and the password that the user inputs in that form. And then if they successfully logged in, we're going to navigate them to the home page, as that's where our job board is being stored. We're also going to need a sign-up page, which we'll just copy over from the login page just to keep consistent template. But we're not going to need this sign-in form. Instead, we're going to need to bring in the sign-up form. So we can drag that on up here. And now we can configure this workflow. So we go to the pre-built sign-up workflow, and on submission of this form, we want to use the sign-up endpoint using Xano. We're going to pass over the name, email, and password. And then we're going to navigate the user to the home page. The next thing we want to do is we want to link this login link. So that way it actually takes users to the login page. And then link the sign up link. So that way it takes people to the sign up page. Now we can test this all out. So let's try signing up for a new account. We'll click Get Started. And now we're able to see the job board. So it looks like everything's working correctly. Now we can configure this actual job board page. So we'll go back into our editor, and the first thing we need to do is find a way to pull in our jobs table data. The way we do that in WeWeb is using collections. Collections are basically just like a database table in Xano, but instead they're pulling the data from that database table using the Xano API. So we'll create a new collection, which will just be jobs, and we're going to pull that from Xano. We'll click continue and select the corresponding jobs, get all jobs endpoint. When we click continue, we can actually see that it correctly fetched the data that is stored in that Xano database table. As we click continue, we see that all these green check marks are lit up, so our collection is being correctly fetched, and we are good to move on to the next step. Now in this editor, we don't really need categories and we don't need these images since those aren't in our database table, but we do want to add maybe a welcome message to welcome users to the app. One more personalized way we can do that is by using dynamic data. So we can say welcome, and then add a plus for the dynamic data, and pull in the user's name, which is being stored using the Xano Auth plugin. Now it will say welcome Max or welcome whatever other user is using the app. Now we want to set this collection list to actually be the data from our collection. So we can go into layout and select the collection list element, delete this existing formula that was used in the template, and instead bind this to our collection. Now we can see there are 3 list items here, which is good because there are 3 list items in our database table and in our collection. So this seems to be working correctly. Now we want to get the text to actually show up. So we can parse through the information in this layout editor and try to find the corresponding elements. We can replace this template job title with our job title data, the company name with our company data, the remote options with the location. There's this little dot for formatting, so we'll leave that as is. And then we're going to replace the salary with our salary. Lastly, we'll remove this last dot since that's not going to be super useful for us. And now we have a fully configured job board page that uses user authentication and the metadata API connection between Xano and WeWeb. I hope this was useful.